as a few other speakers before me have already said, I am really honored and it's a great privilege to be here with you. Thank you so much to the organizers for inviting me to be part of the committee and for inviting me to be here with you this week. I really love this initiative. We work on a lot of initiatives, like Chris said, at the Alliance of Bioversity and CIAT, and it covers a lot of underutilized species and different crops. But this initiative is just so beautiful. It's very specific, and I think that's going to make it very powerful. And then it's not really all that normal. When you work on food systems, you're often thinking about trade-offs. But in the case of working on underutilized fruits, you don't have to think so much about the trade-offs because it's a win-win-win. So from the public health nutrition perspective, it's a win. And from the biodiversity perspective, it's a win. And from the climate perspective, it's also a win. So we have this amazing triple win. And so part of the beauty of this is the fact that we can be celebrating these three wins, but also that it's very specific. And I think so it's going to be a very impactful program. I would like to also just say that I'm honored maybe to be the first nutrition speaker. And it seems to me also, I think I'm the first lecturer so far to give you some gender diversity. So thank you so much for those opportunities. Now, if I can figure out my slide, I hit page down. Yeah. So I'm just going to refresh us on exactly what is a healthy diet. Sometimes as a nutritionist, people are a little confused about what they should be eating or what your population. I'm a population nutrition, public health nutrition specialist. So what should your population be eating? And what are the nutrition and health challenges in India? How could fruit be helping those challenges? And then I'll close with some diet and health entry points, I think, for the CFI initiative. So what's a healthy diet? We're super lucky that right before the Conference of Parties on Biodiversity, this publication was launched by the Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Health Organization. It's a simple book. I recommend everybody to read it if you ever need to have guidelines on what makes a healthy diet. So there's 4 principles to it. It needs to be adequate. So we've heard a lot about that in terms of what fruit contributes in terms of vitamins and minerals. And we also know that our dietary intakes need to be balanced. So we've heard about that as well. We need to have a balance of energy intake across fats, protein, carbohydrates. And that has to also be kept in line with your overall energy balance so that the calories you take in, you need to expend either through physical activity or reducing your calorie intake. Yes? And what we haven't heard so much is moderate. So we need to be taking moderate sugars, salts, and fats. And we do that, one, by promoting fruits and whole foods and consuming less of what we call ultra-processed foods. And then finally, this was so beautiful that this publication came out right before Conference of Parties on Biodiversity, is WHO and FAO are recommending a diverse diet. That's beautiful for us. So it doesn't mean that every day I take or I feed my children banana and you got your fruit and that's good. No. A diverse diet means that I take jambon, I take grapes, I take lychees, I take rambutan, I take mangosteen. I eat a diversity, the most diversity possible that I can imagine makes a diverse diet. And that has a lot of properties, both bioactive compounds, but also it's very good for the gut microbiome. So this just comes straight out of the World Health Organization, and the very number one guideline they give to global populations is 400 grams of fruits and vegetables a day. So you can divide that in half, which is how WHO does it. India does it a little bit different. And then we have some other things like pulses we've mentioned a bit. Nuts also come from trees, whole grains. And number 5, I think, is really important. 25 grams of dietary fiber, you're also going to get that from a nice diet of fruits and nuts. And then this one is also important. Less than 10% of total energy intake from free sugars. So if you have kind of a sweet tooth and you're craving to have something sweet, fruit is going to give you that craving, but not give you the added sugars because it's not coming from added baked sweets. These are your dietary guidelines for Indians. And what I really want to draw your attention to is the proportionality on the plate. That's getting us into these concepts that I just mentioned of a healthy diet. And what you see is half of the plate or half of the portion size should actually be fruits and vegetables. Now, I know we're very far away from that mark, but at least as a public health nutrition specialist, it's good to understand that those are the guidelines, including here in this country, in India. They're recommending that half of your plate is fruits and vegetables. So, of course, we're going to have to get better at producing, making it affordable, and making it desirable for consumers. So what we know about the role of fruit in a healthy diet is the World Health Organization recommends about 200 grams per person per day. The food-based dietary guidelines recommend that you consume fruit daily, every single day. We know that it's a rich source of vitamins, notably vitamin C and vitamin A, and also minerals, iron, zinc, calcium, a very good source of dietary fiber, and very rich in health protective bioactive compounds. This is just something that I want us to do at CFI. So I put it here for a couple reasons. They have beautiful high resolution photos, which CFI needs to get. We need to have these beautiful, attractive photos of fruit. And then it's showing you that a lot of these underutilized fruits, these come from Brazil, are much higher than what we think of. Like as a nutritionist, I would say, oh, carrots, papaya, they contain a lot of vitamin A. And this is showing some of the indigenous fruits in Brazil contain magnitudes more vitamin A and vitamin C than what we think of as our kind of exotic common fruits. So I tried to find what I could, and I also want to point out that the National Institute of Nutrition in Hyderabad has this beautiful table. They call them the food composition tables. And Ananthan is here, and Ananthan shared with us the data that they have collected on fruit, which is quite a lot. And so you see two categories of bioactive compounds, polyphenols and carotenoids. And we can see, a range of polyphenols in some species, wood apple being the highest that I found in the tables, followed by tamarind and then lychee. And in terms of carotenoids, I was surprised that guava was at the top, followed by falsa. And I think some people have spoken about falsa, but that would be one of these sort of lesser utilized fruits. This also, I was one of the reviewers for some of the grants, and a lot of the grantees wanted to do more nutrition composition analysis. And for anybody who wanted to do more composition analysis, I would, one, recommend you go to the tables of the National Institute of Nutrition and see if your food has already been analyzed. And two, just do like a basic literature review. So this is from 2023, and it's a full literature review of what we know about the bioactive compounds in underutilized fruits in the northern Himalayas in India. So a lot of what we're looking for is already out there. Okay, so just very quickly, I think this is an important table because the second dietary risk factor in terms of disability adjusted life years loss is a diet low in fruits. This is worldwide. And then this is data from India that comes from the food-based dietary guidelines. And I just summarized it as hypertension, high blood pressure, and diabetes in India are going up. And chronic energy deficiency, or really just not getting enough calories, is going down in these 2 years, 2016 to 2021. And I was surprised that obesity figures, and I couldn't find different ones, there might be different ones, are kind of holding steady and even went down for women, which I found surprising. These are India and the global nutrition targets. So if it's blue, then you're doing well and you're on course to meet the nutrition target. If it's orange, then you're just stagnating. So you see anemia, for example, is stagnating. And if it's gray, then you're off course. So this one is showing us that obesity in men is off course, diabetes in women is off course, diabetes in men is off course, high blood pressure for women off course, high blood pressure for men off course, obesity for women off course. So we also need to think not just about undernutrition, but also about diet-related non-communicable diseases, not only in India, but all around the world. So this is a simple illustration of what's wrong with our diets globally. We have too much energy from nutrient-poor staples. We're consuming too little fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and pulses. We, in some cases, probably not India, being that there's such a large population of vegetarians, but there's unbalanced animal source and aquatic food consumption. And then there's increased sugar-sweetened beverages, increased intakes of salt, fat, and sugar. Now, this is some data from a project I really like called the Global Diet Quality Project. And we see in India that a higher percent of men, 46%, and urban residents, 51%, consume fruits, compared to women, 42%, and rural residents, 39%. But also what it tells us really is that even at the topmost urban residents, only 51% of them consumed a fruit the day before. That's a survey methodology, is the day before. And then it breaks it down into whether it was a vitamin A rich fruit, so only 20% of the population consumed a vitamin A rich fruit, a citrus fruit, only 14%, and an other fruit, only 38%. So there's really a wide way to go in terms of consumption of fruit, daily consumption of fruit in India. This data was from 2021. So I just want to close with what I think are a couple entry points for CFI. So this comes from, this is an example that I would love to see us highlight something like this next year at the next CFI conference, is actually what are consumers' attitudes? Because as much as I love generating data and talking about how healthy fruits are for us, we know that consumers maybe are motivated by different things. And so this was a survey we did in Kenya, and most consumers would agree, these are all women, that fruits are important for the health of their child. Only half of them agreed that they did eat enough fruit. And then a lot of them agreed that they would buy more fruit if they had the money. And then I just want to draw your attention to the last bar there. And that is asking, are you proud to eat your wild fruits? We could also say your wild or your indigenous fruits. And nearly half of them said they disagreed or they weren't sure. So I do think we have to be intelligent when we're trying to promote wild and indigenous fruits, and we have to do something to make them desirable and attractive to consumers, because at the moment a lot of them have a stigma of being poor or not being able to afford a more attractive type of fruit. These are also some examples of things that we do at the Alliance of Bioversity and CIAT. This is a pictorial graphic of all the diversity of fruits and vegetables. So you see the fruits in the bottom two bars. And what's really fun about this is there's such a wide array of selection that you could have. So there really is, in terms of that diversity concept of FAO and WHO, a lot of diversity available. And then I haven't really heard any of the previous speakers talk about this, but this is the idea that you could have a seasonally available fruit all around the year. So people who study this is done from eCraft and C4. They can identify that if you plant in sequence different species of fruits, like let's say we do a fruit orchard in schools or in a low-income community, you should also pay attention to diversifying the species so you can have a fresh fruit all year round. So that's another really important aspect, I think, for CFI. I think we also need to make very attractive promotional materials, maybe also using recipes and chefs, so that these types of things and the messages we want to get out from CFI are attractive. And then finally, you can really cultivate your agrobiodiversity champions within schools and by having involving chefs, having nice recipes, but doing things in schools like a food fair and tasting fairs and things like that, just to get people excited about all the diversity that there is. So fairs and community events are another really great way to promote further consumption of fruits.